What's happening with the Israel-Hamas situation is very much fitting the CCP's calculus because their own strategists talk about this three-war strategy to defeat the United States, and a strategy which involves a strange trickery is in the move as revealed by inside sources from China. So we'll talk about all of that today. Welcome to China Insider, I'm David Zhang. Now, the CCP knows that it needs to create four distractions at all times against the US so that it is too busy to deal with the CCP. And we know that right now there's four entities, right? We have Hamas, Iran, North Korea, and Russia. And that's outside of China, what they want to do. And so these four entities create a lot of problems. And these four countries are behind what essentially is the three-war strategy put on by the CCP. Now, if four of these countries are engaged in different areas of conflicts or indirectly involved in them, it gives the CCP a lot of breathing room. As we can see with the Israel-Hamas conflict, it also gave Russia some space to relax. Now, based on that, there's a three-war strategy which have been publicly given and revealed by CCP strategists in the past. And so I'm going to talk about that today. Now, what's been essentially happening is that there's three areas in which the United States dominates around the world. First, it's its ability to have security reach across Europe, which is through the centering around NATO. And the second, its dollar is so powerful that it can potentially sanction and punish different countries based on their behaviors. And the third is that it can protect at the same time prevent certain countries from accessing areas around the world. So I'll talk about why the three-war strategy will defeat each of these areas. Now, beyond all of that, we have to first talk about what essentially is the three-war strategy. Now, this is a theory that as long as there are three theaters of fights targeting three areas of the U.S., then it is what is going to be defeating the United States in the long run. And this is going to do in ways in which it can, first of all, drain the resources, but also apply international pressure, as well as directly hit the political reach around the world for the United States. Now, the first one is operating a strategy or a war in Europe. And this, again, is to target NATO and the US-centered NATO strategy, right? We're seeing this with the Russia-Ukraine situation. If Ukraine falls, then the next step for Russia is to attack countries like Poland, which are part of NATO. Now, this could trigger Article 5, right, where it could place the world at war. So, desperately to prevent that, the US is essentially doing a proxy war against China, in where China funds Russia, and then the US is putting a lot of money into Ukraine, billions of dollars. And if Ukraine falls, it essentially allows the CCP to determine that its first war of the three wars is a victorious one because it has crumbled the ability of NATO to operate in Europe. At least that's what they think. The second one is based on the idea that if they can create something in the Middle East where it can threaten the dollar, right? De-dollarization, either that's through oil with states like Saudi and Iran having large amounts of that. And then we're seeing that right now, right? They're trying to create the petrodollar alternative to the petro-yuan and such. So de-dollarization, but it can also be created through war. So we're seeing that the escalation by Hamas and the Israel potentially having to fight multiple states at the same time, a three-front, four-front war, is troublesome for the United States because Israel is the US staunch ally in the Middle East, and if it falls, then it creates a lot of instability across the Middle East. It draws the United States back into potentially war, and as well as the same time creating a lot of distraction where the CCP can grow again. And in doing so, the US dollar could be threatened. Now, I'm not saying that any of these are actually happening or is going to threaten, but this is, again, the strategy that they're working through. And the third warfare is in areas across the Pacific Ocean. Specifically, it needs to break through what the United States uses to prevent China's military, which is called the first and second island chain. Now, the first island chain is countries of South Korea, the Philippines, Taiwan, and Japan, which it forms essentially a physical barrier. If the Chinese Navy wants to get past these countries and to project its power, it needs to break through this barrier. So the geographical situation around the CCP and around China is that there are countries who essentially, with the help and the backing of the United States, keep China's Navy at bay. And with naval projection, it means global supremacy and it means global power. So the United States can project its naval port essentially anywhere around the world at any given times, just like how it's deploying the Gerald Ford Carrier Strike Group into the Mediterranean Sea to try to keep the situation in the Middle East stable. And so if they start a third war in the Pacific Ocean, it has to be from a member of this evil axis, right? could potentially be North Korea, as the South Korean chairman of the Joint Chiefs has warned that potentially North Korea could launch a similar attack to that one of Hamas and take the South by surprise. So we don't know where that third warfare is going to happen, but the exact continent is going to be in Asia, the areas likely either around Taiwan or around Japan and South Korea. So that's what we have to watch for next. Now, this is all nice and easy, but what exactly is Xi Jinping's plan here? Well, according to a September 25th tweet by a former reporter from China named Zhao Lanjian, he got exclusive source inside China, inside the CCP, telling him that Xi Jinping's playbook has one weird trick. Sounds really memey, right? Like one weird trick to get something done. But it's real, apparently. It's a strange, hard to describe, weird trick that Xi Jinping is pulling off, and it involves the Russian President Putin, in which I personally think is going to be military. And it also fits this context of the three-war strategy, right? We're already seeing instability across the Middle East, as well as with the existing one in Ukraine. So it almost feels like the next one is going to happen in Asia sometimes very soon. So we don't know what the actual plan or the details of the one weird trick would be, but it seems like it's something involving Putin. Could there also be Iran involved? Who knows? But that's what we know so far. Now, what I kind of want to talk about now is the details in which why the three warfare strategy fits the Xi Jinping playbook. We know that the ultimate goal is to take Taiwan by force, and they have to do so by 2027 because of age, because of the military readiness, and because in general, that's after the third term ends for Xi Jinping. So for him to secure the next one, or to keep the Taiwan issue in his time, he has to do it by 2027. Now, there's a lot of time differences in terms of discussion when it could happen. It could happen as early as next year. It could happen maybe in a few months. Who knows? But the key point here is that that's the ultimate objective of Xi Jinping. So for him to secure that, he needs to create enough distractions around the world in which the U.S. particularly does not have enough resource dedicated to protecting Taiwan. Now, in actual practice, the United States may be able to afford that. But given what we know, right, and this is again the CCP's calculation, is that people, certain groups or certain powers in the US, maybe they either want to fund Ukraine and not Israel, or fund Israel and not Ukraine, or any of the combination. And when you mix a third warfare in between, right, could potentially be Taiwan, could potentially be Korea's, or is everyone going to have a consensus on the US foreign policy and who to help, who to supply, those sort of things? And does the domestic capability of the United States meet that of a three-front war? This is pulling back to World War II, right? You had the Pacific theater, you had the European theater, and which in both cases required a lot of investment of manpower, military production, as well as technology involved. And now imagine if you have a third theater that you have to fight, and that is crazy to think about. Now, with the Middle East in particular, we really can't see or predict where it's going, because if it escalates into a state versus state war, then that is definitely going to be another discussion, which is something we're watching for next, right? If the involvement of Syria or Lebanon with the Hezbollah come in. But what this doesn't do is it doesn't help us to see Israel in a favorable condition, because if they do choose to invade Gaza, then the ground invasion, which still is up to not yet certain, but if it does do that, then it risks drawing more international pressure. And under that context, how many countries may potentially end its diplomatic relations with Israel due to potential war crimes and all sorts of excuses and things like that? But the idea is that Israel is fighting one public opinion war, and it's always on the losing side. And who knows what China wants to do? Is it trying to, potentially see things like the Abraham Accords, right? The Israel peace negotiation that happened during the Trump era with countries like Bahrain, with the UAE, with Morocco, and what if those countries, they stop doing that, right? Then there's also the Saudi situation with Iran, where essentially two different branches of Islam, right? The Sunnis versus the Shia, they've now decided to band together under the context of now it's a religious war, one against Israel. And so the CCP has successfully weaponized that portion as well, creating a united front in the religious aspect over things like value-based, like the rules-based international order and so on. So these are all points which really benefits the CCP. And before we go on further, let me just introduce my sponsor today. Now, Blueberry Quality Products has introduced a new product called Cloud No-Show Socks. Now, I've been wearing these for about a week, and I noticed it's quite comfortable. It's like walking on cloud. But the problem with no-show socks, you might have realized, is that they often slip and they crumble into like the first part into your feet, right? Into the shoes. And so you're walking around, it's super uncomfortable and it's really awkward to always have to take off your shoes and then roll it back on and then go. But then they fall off 10 seconds later. So with Cloud, what they've done is they've really form-fitted the sock to your feet. So it's like hugging it and has these non-slip bands all around the sole, as well as different parts of the socks. And it's really shaped comfortably for your feet. And I noticed that because it has premium cotton, and so it's odor resistance, it's sweat resistant, as well as it's just really soft and comfortable. And I wear these with my boots or with sneakers. Now, Cloud, they don't do any discounts themselves in their website or on Amazon. So what Blueberry Quality Products has done is negotiate a really good deal with their bundle. So for a 5-pair bundle, you get, which is $65.99, you get 2 additional pairs for free. So it works out to be about a 21% discount, which is really good because they never do any discounts. But this does not apply to the special promotion code, which is if you click the link in the description, all other items you'll get a 15% discount. But with Cloud, because it's a special deal, itself does not go on discount, but because you have that 5 pairs and 2 pairs for free, it's 21% discount. So it's actually higher than that. But like I said, all other products on the store, you can actually get a 15% discount, as well as a $70, spending $70 and you get free shipping. So definitely check out all the products there. They're all great products. And yeah, I'll leave the link in the description so you can check it out. Now, this situation was different during the Trump administration, as Matt Pottinger, the China expert and former Trump Security Council official, puts it. And he says, quote, China was really rattled by President Trump's administration. The thing that would make China most fearful of a second Trump term is if they believe Trump was going to have Ukraine's back, have NATO's back, and have Taiwan's back. And if any candidates show weakness on NATO, on Ukraine, and on Taiwan, that would be the preferred candidate for China, even if it means they have to stomach more tariffs. Now, I'm not saying that Biden's not doing some of the things, but I think that things were so different under Trump. You had the peaceful Middle East, Russia was not attacking, and then Taiwan was also stable. And so that's the issue right now, is Xi Jinping clearly is banking on calculations by the United States which are different than that of what the CCP is thinking. And so that clear mismatch is why we're seeing exploitation strategically and why they're making such moves at this particular time. And speaking of that, Israel is also not innocent in this, right? They were the ones who supplied a lot of the drone technology and other technology to China, being so friendly with them for a very long time, which that technology is now being funded and exported to Iran, which is then now being used by Hamas, right? Now, drone technology was, of course, first used in Russia, Ukraine, but then now it's actually being used in the Israel-Hamas war. And finally, I just want to talk about some things that really trouble me. First of all, which is who is really behind this strategy and planning, because Hamas says it's Iran denies it. The US says they haven't seen credible intelligence yet of Iran being involved in this. The Wall Street Journal says that Iran's Revolutionary Guards Corps definitely were involved in this, planning and giving them the training for it and then giving the final go. But then NBC News says senior Iranian officials have not seen or they were not aware of Hamas's attack. So whether you believe that Iran is directly involved or not, I just want to point out one thing, which is that the CCP likely has direct channel of communications with Hamas. And that draws me to my second concern, which is that why did Hamas do such brutal things like murdering children, cutting the heads off of babies, and raping women, and killing people at a music festival, knowing that this could potentially trigger the extinction of Hamas from Gaza? Israel is going to really full-on invade Gaza to try to wipe out Hamas. So what sort of benefits are the top leadership of Hamas getting, and who are they getting it from? How is the CCP involved in that directly? And so that is a question we have to explore. And the third point, I think, is that whoever is involved, the attacks are directly trying to escalate the situation. And if we consider that part, who stands to benefit more? Is it Iran, or is it China and perhaps even Russia? And lastly, how did Israel's intelligence fail to see that the Hamas was planning this attack months in advance? And that part still doesn't make sense to me. But overall, what doesn't trouble me is that we clearly see there's a grander plan by the CCP to promote a 3-war strategy, and it's actually putting it into practice, which is something very worrisome. But I don't think that they are going to achieve the final objective, given that Israel and the United States clearly has a military advantage. And on the other side, with the Ukraine war, that's come to a stalemate. So we just have to focus on the third war, which is coming, but we have no idea where it could be yet. But it's going to be in specifically Asia. And that's it today for the episode on how China is using a three-war strategy, and potentially Xi Jinping's own playbook is calling for a weird trick to start something big. If you enjoy the content, leave a like, comment below your thoughts on this topic, and subscribe to our channel. I'm David Zhang, this is China Insider. See you next time.